The Ducati Streetfighter has been the benchmark for sport nakeds for many years now. And Ducati claims that this is the best street fighter ever. And I flew over 27 hours to get here in Almeria, Spain to find out a little bit more about this beast. And it's happening in this episode of Beyond the Ride. The bike is powered by a 1,103cc Desmo Sedici Stradale engine that puts out a whopping 214 horsepower at 13,500 RPM and 120 Nm of torque at 11,250 RPM. For the brakes up front, you get two 330mm discs with Brembo 4-piston calipers with race ECBS and a 245mm disc with 2-piston calipers for the rear. For the front suspension, you get fully adjustable all-ends with electric compression and rebound damping. And for the rear, you get fully adjustable all-ends as well. For the wheels and tires up front, you get size 17's forged aluminum alloy wrapped in 120x70 Pirelli Diablo Rosso Corsa. While for the rear, it's also size 17's wrapped in 200x60 Diablo Rosso Corsa. However, for our track day, Ducati equipped us with slicks, which felt like the grippiest tires I've ever used. Now, I want to talk about something that's many people have commented about in terms of the aesthetics of the bike, and that is this. No longer is there a single-sided swing arm, and when the pictures of this bike were shown on the internet, the first thing that people talked about was actually that single-sided swing arm. And I gotta admit that the single-sided swing arm does look better. But Ducati did this because, you know, their DNA is really about performance, and that's just the way they have been throughout their existence. And the bike performs pretty much flawlessly. I mean, I had a little bit of doubts on whether or not it was going to be able to get a normal rider to, you know, to push the bike on the racetrack and not really baby it too much. And I gotta say, I mean, I felt very comfortable. Not once did I feel, you know, that I was going too hard on the bike. I thought it managed everything very well. So let's talk more about the aesthetics of the bike. I mean, it's undeniably a street fighter when you look at it up front. Of course, you have these new wings that actually, the designers of these wings are the same guys who designed the aerodynamics of the MotoGP bikes of Ducati. And we all know how dominant they've been in MotoGP for the last couple of years. So if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for a bike for you and me. Ducati always knows how to make their bikes sexy. And the new Streetfighter V4S delivers that in spades. The bike is aggressive yet elegant at the same time. The designers and engineers clearly have impeccable attention to detail, which elevates the bike's appeal beyond performance. It truly is an artwork on wheels. This bike, especially in road and sport mode, is extremely rideable by your average rider. So as I've mentioned on this channel before, I'm not exactly the type that will always be in a racetrack. I go a couple times a year for track days and I truly enjoy them. And flying 27 hours jet lagged, being on the track was no joke. And I gotta admit, I was a little bit intimidated with this bike because, well, it's a new track, it's a new bike, it's, you know, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But after the first couple of sessions, and of course, thanks to the DRE instructors, I felt very comfortable. In fact, I would say that's probably the most comfortable I've felt with a high-performance bike in a new track. On road and sport mode, I felt like I had full control of this beast, and the brakes worked extremely well as I found myself late braking on some corners. However, when I tried it on race mode, it almost felt like a different machine. I only managed one lap before going back to sport mode because I found myself babying the bike a lot. Not gonna lie, it was a little too much for me on race mode. The bike definitely demands respect. Now, for those more track-focused riders, you'd have a ton of fun with this, for sure. Of course, you'd expect this to be loaded with tech, and it is. So it does have a new TFT screen, and probably at first, when you look at it, you know, it's got all sorts of different details of the bike. Yes, I'm used to the older version TFT, but once you use it a little bit more, it does get intuitive. It does, of course, come with 4 different riding modes, as you typically have in most Ducatis. And it also does have 4 power modes as well: low, medium, high, and full. Some of the other tech included are ride-by-wire, power launch, slide control, wheelie control, engine brake control, traction control. I mean, the huge amount of rider aids makes this a lot more rideable than you'd imagine, considering the amount of power it's got. So the bike does have this technology called DVO, that's Ducati Vehicle Observer. And the way you ride a bike, there's sort of an algorithm that it figures out certain things as you're riding, and it's going to be helping you along the way because it almost has like an AI. It almost has its own intelligence that the way you ride a bike, the way your tendencies are, it kind of understands that, and it's going to help the rider in riding the bike. So it's really smart. It's really something that I actually don't quite understand. In fact, they just told us about that earlier this morning, and I honestly didn't feel it. But knowing that the bike is kind of learning the way you ride, your tendencies as a rider, that's something that I've never seen from a motorcycle before. The quick shifter is new. It is up and down, and I think with this quick shifter, typically I like the quick shifters of Ducati, but this one it's a little bit different for me. There was times when you have to really commit to hitting it. It doesn't just it needs a little bit more pressure than the old one. At least that's my experience with the bike on the track. So it also comes with a combined braking system. So when you're riding the bike pretty hard on a straight and a turn comes, you can actually brake a little bit later than you typically would with other bikes, because it's when you hit the front brake, it also accesses the rear and it slows the bike down significantly. There's a couple of times on the track when I thought I was coming in a little bit too hot, and had it been maybe another bike, I probably would have gone off the track. But with this bike, I was still able to stop it enough to get the turn right. And it's something that's, again, it's very forgiving. For somebody who's not exactly a pro rider, I really, really enjoyed this bike. And the longer we were on the track, the more sessions that we got, the more familiar I got with the track, the more familiar I got with the bike, the experience got even better because I was riding it a lot quicker and a lot harder than I was earlier in the day. So when you purchase the bike, it does come with this. It's a single seat, but you do have the option to put the pillion seat here, and then you can add the foot pegs as well. So typically, the older version will have the rear seat and the foot pegs, and then you kind of buy this version and you take out the foot pegs. This one, they did it opposite because most people who have this bike probably won't be having a pillion on it too much. And speaking of the seat, that is rather comfortable. In fact, the comfort of it is actually something that I want to expound on a little bit more. So we had 6 sessions on the track today, and after the 6th session, I wasn't even tired. I wanted to go to 8 sessions because it's a bike that you can ride it pretty hard on the racetrack, but it's still comfortable. And it's something that most bikes out there that you're out on the racetrack for 4 sessions, you'll feel the fatigue. But this one, 6 sessions, it still felt like it wasn't enough. The shape of the tank is there to help the rider in cornering. So you can actually, even this right here, the material that they use, you can, when you're hanging off the bike, it definitely gives you a lot of control. I mean, you can lock your right leg here and you're hanging off the bike, and definitely has good control of that. And also the tank, which is 16 liters fuel tank capacity, by the way. Some of it actually ends up underneath the seat. That's why they were able to get this thing a lot trimmer, a lot skinnier as it goes closer to the rider. The handlebar does seem a little bit wider than the old Streetfighter V4, and it's actually closer to the rider as well. And that's, for somebody who's not really tall, that's actually appreciated because you're not, supermaning yourself on the bike. And it's definitely something that is, I think, at least for me, worked very well with the ergonomics. So the bike is very agile. And usually when a bike is agile, the stability is going to be in question. But somehow, the way they designed this bike, they knocked it out of the park. It felt very planted on the racetrack. It felt confidence inspiring on the track. Not once did I feel that I was going too fast. I mean, of course, on the track, you want to push, you want to feel, get close to the limits. But I think they managed to really nail it in terms of agility and stability. Usually that's a little bit of a challenge, but Ducati nailed it with this bike.
So when you talk about the agility, the stability, the comfort, that really will translate into better performance from the rider. And that's the theory that Ducati had with this machine, because they wanted the rider to not stress out too much about certain things. And of course, being uncomfortable with this bike, they were able to achieve something that's you don't normally see. You're comfortable in a bike this powerful and on the racetrack, that you can go a long time on the track and not feel fatigue, and in turn, that's going to get more from the rider. So that's how smart the bike is, I suppose, because they understand if the bike is doing its job properly, the rider can do its job properly as well. So the wet weight of the bike is 189 kilograms, and the fuel tank capacity, as I mentioned, is 16 liters. Don't ask me the fuel consumption, because most Ducati riders don't really care about that too much. And the seat height is actually 845 millimeters. When they say that it's the best Street Fighter ever, it's because this Street Fighter is the closest to the Panigale ever.
Now this image shows just how much of the Panigale is in the new Street Fighter. Typically, the Street Fighter is a lesser version of the Superbike, a more muted one, with less power, but this is pretty much the new Panigale. Literally only 2 horsepower less than the Superbike. With a focus on being lightweight, having as much power as possible, being stable and agile, while still being comfortable and having all the rider aids imaginable available, the 2025 Ducati Streetfighter V4S is a bike that promises to get the optimum performance from both man or woman and machine. It truly is special.
All right, so in conclusion, is this better than the old Street Fighter V4? Yes, it is. Does it look the same without the single-sided swing arm? No. But the rest of the bike, I think, looks excellent. It's a give or take, right? Do you want more performance or do you want more aesthetics? I guess I still think it looks good. Obviously, when you think about the old swing arm, the single-sided, it's a little bit more pleasing to the eyes, but this is not bad either. So I guess if you can get over that, it looks a little bit different from the rear. The rest of the bike looked excellent. It rides better. It's more forgiving. It's something that even if you're not an excellent rider on the racetrack, you're able to enjoy this thing to the max. And that's something that is definitely appreciated from somebody who's more of a touring guy than a track rider.
The estimate price of the 2025 Ducati Streetfighter V4S starts at 1,955,000 Philippine pesos, while the estimated price of the V4 starts at 1,610,000 Philippine pesos.
So for more information about this bike and other MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. From Almeria, Spain, this has been Jinno for this episode of Beyond the Ride.